than what was put in the governor's budget. So it's going to be more. I don't know how much more, but we're just starting that process now of looking at budget targets. But I think that's a commitment that I think is bipartisan. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. They want to do more for community colleges. So I think that's something you'll probably see a much higher level than what currently is proposed.
Senator Wood.
Thank you. I too would have to say that at this point in time, I have no idea where it's going to come from. The majority party will work on that. I happen to have my ranking member for Probst here with me today, and he knows that's and he agrees with me without me even telling him that funding for community college is an important piece. So something we'll be monitoring and seeing what happens.
Representative Rance.
The question wasn't, do we want to put more money into community colleges? All four caucuses seem to agree on that. The question is, where will the money come from? And that is why I'm actually not optimistic. The governor's budget doesn't really have a lot of wiggle room in it. Frankly, I think for folks to start talking about that they're going to put more money into community colleges, but they don't want to do the governor's revenue plans, I'm not sure how all that will work out. And I'll tell you, I've got some of my own members who've said the same thing. So I think it's problematic and causes me a great deal of concern until the majority parties decide which of the governor's revenue enhancements they're going to pursue. I'm not going to start pre-guessing where they intend on spending money. I think there are some creative places that you can shift dollars around from, none of which will be terribly popular. The governor made a point to us the other day that money doesn't grow on trees around here. He's already made several different cuts. But while everybody's talking about community colleges today, and I know that that's gotten more than its fair share of ink, the group that really concerns me, with all due respect to Senator Kibbe, is the private colleges. We don't fund private colleges in this state. We fund students. We fund the Iowa Tuition Grant Scholarship Program. And while it appears as though the regions pretty much were fully funded, and the community colleges got an increase, although far be it from what they argue that they need, the students in this state who received the Iowa Tuition Grant got nothing. They got zero, no increase at all. Last I checked, their tuition continues to increase as well. They continue to struggle with room and board needs. So it would be my hope that as my colleagues prepare their budget in response to Governor Culver's, that they not forget about those students who also received the Iowa Tuition Grant. I think those students are just as deserving as the students in my district who also attend community colleges.
And today we also have two members of our media panel to help ask questions. We have Janine Beck with Iowa Public Radio and Susie Robinette from Fox TV. And the next question is Janine.
Just today, the Director of the Department of Corrections, John Baldwin, expressed concern about an ability to recruit not only pharmacists, but physicians, nurses, and psychiatrists at the facilities, in part because of the salaries, in part because of their location. And one of the members, Roger Jeffkes, mentioned that that might be something that should be considered when you look at citing the next Supermax prison. Is it a done deal that it is going to be in Fort Madison, or should the state take a broader look about where this new facility should be located? And are we starting in a different order?
Christopher.
I know that Dave Jeffkes and I actually have in our caucus we've got three members that are working on that. Representative Jeffkes, Representative Forbach, Representative Lucan. As far as House Republicans, it is not a done deal. I think that while we want to make sure that Iowans are safe, that we are housing our prison population appropriately and keeping Iowans secure, it is by no means, in our opinion, a done deal or something that the state should necessarily rush into. Bear in mind, we're talking about bonding for close to $200 million because two people escaped. Now, there's no doubt that the prison in Fort Madison is antiquated, has a lot of structural problems, but before we decide that we're just going to rebuild that prison for that particular purpose, I think there are a number of things that the state needs to look at, be it community-based corrections, and how we manage and juggle our entire prison population, and of course also location. If the decision is made that the correct thing to do is to build a new maximum security prison, maybe Fort Madison is the right place. But as you pointed out, there are a lot of questions about the flow of prisoners from the first time they are taken into the system, moved through the process, put into maximum security, and also where they receive their health care. The time where everyone is the most vulnerable is when those inmates are being transported. And yet we have located that maximum security prison in one of the most remote corners of the state. If one were designing the entire correctional system today, I doubt that we would put a maximum security prison in Fort Madison, much like we wouldn't put a maximum security prison in the far northwest corner of Iowa, because that's not necessarily where the population is. That's not where we treat the inmates. That's not how the workflow goes for processing those individuals. So I think that's a legitimate issue for discussion. It may be that that's the decision to put it there, but I don't necessarily think it should be a done deal.
Senator Ward.
I would have to say that we have not had formally had any discussion whatsoever in our caucus about that particular issue. I've talked to a number of our caucus members one-on-one just about different issues, and that has come up. And it's not a done deal from the testing of the water that I've done, and I certainly would agree that for someone to say that if it is a done deal that it's in Fort Madison is not the correct approach. I don't think that there's really been a look at a lot of issues when it comes to that whole process, and inmate services that have to be done off campus is a big part of that, and I'm not sure that's been totally addressed. So I think that one's still up in the air.
Speaker Murphy.
I think that, to be honest with you, it's probably a done deal for several reasons. The first one is, first of all, you have the infrastructure there. Secondly, you have the staff that's trained. And I think it's important to talk about the staff there, because you're talking about our worst inmates in our prison system, and you're talking about the ability to transport them, move them somewhere else. Need I remind everybody that we tried to move 6 prisoners in a prisoner exchange about 10 years ago, and as I remember, they escaped and they went for a 6-hour joyride before the Texas State Rangers picked them up after they tied up the 2 people that were transporting them. We're talking about our most dangerous inmates in our prison system, and so I think it's important to, one, have the staff skills that are already present at Fort Madison to continue to provide that service. Secondly, I think the other part you have to look at, though, too, is in the long range, it's going to save the state a lot of money, because no matter how you build this facility, you're going to need less staff. It's going to be a more functioning unit. The safety features on it are much better than the current prison, because the current prison, if I need to remind everybody, is older than the state of Iowa. It was built in 1839. We didn't become a state till the 1840s. So I think there's no question that we are doing a lot of smart things. We're building a new facility. It's going to be safer. It's going to be safer for the inmates. It's going to be safer for the correctional officers that work there. And then along with that, it'll make it safer for the public. So I think there's a number of reasons that we have to do this, and it makes sense, I think, at this point to put it in Fort Madison.
Senator Kibbe.
Well, I haven't been in the inner circle that's been working on that, but I agree with Pat. It's kind of like the TV program, Deal or No Deal. I mean, it's probably a deal, but it depends on what other issues connected with the prison system, community-based and the women's prison and other issues. We've got a lot of people in our prison system that are that never, their worst enemy are themselves. And we need to see that those people are going to get out of the system relatively soon, that they're trained, and we can help them get a job, and that to me is the important thing that we can do in this whole prison discussion. But I think if those things are dealt with, we'll get a new maximum security prison. It'll probably be in Fort Madison. The funding scheme to pay for it, that part's got to be finalized, and so I think we're on the right track. But we got to address all the folks that are involved in the various systems today.
Senator Grunstall.
I think I just echo what everyone